Okay, hello. This is my video for today's check-in number 13. And this week I've been working a lot on chapter 17. So a day or two after the last check-in, I was able to finish up the first half of chapter 17 that was dealing with work and energy of a rigid body. And I was able to complete the homework problems and video examples that had to do with that. And then since then I've been working on the second part of chapter 17, which has to deal with momentum and impulse problems. And so this week I think I've probably spent around 12 hours working on this class, just watching the videos, looking at the textbook, and then doing homework problems. But so far it's going pretty well. I found that I was kind of confused on some of the concepts in momentum and impulse initially, but I found that I went back and looked at some of the notes I had from the chapter 13 and reviewed some of the concepts from there, and then I was able to better understand how we were extending those concepts into rigid bodies and adding the terms for rotation, and then taking the translation portion from chapter 13 and putting those together. And so that was pretty helpful. And then it also was helpful to watch the video examples that you had after your lecture on chapter 17, momentum and impulse. Those example videos kind of helped me to solidify in my mind some of those equations and understand how we use those instead of just seeing what the equations are and where they come from. But so far I have finished all of the videos you've provided for us for chapter number 17. So I've watched all of the lecture videos and the example problems that you had there, and those were pretty helpful. I've also been able to complete a lot of the homework. So right now I just have one homework problem left to do. It's the problem that has a plank, and then there's the two kids that are jumping on the plank, and we can tell that that's going to be a problem that has to do with collision, and so we're going to use impulse to solve that because there's an impact involved, and so that's the part that I'm still learning now and trying to review the problems that have to do with impact, because I've only done one problem so far, which was the problem number 7 in the homework that had a bullet that was going into a round wooden block, which is kind of similar to the ballistic pendulum that a lot of physics books have, except this has a twist on it because it's a rigid body for dynamics. But so far I feel like this chapter is going pretty well. I've been able to get a good chunk of the homework done, and I feel like I understand it pretty well. I feel like chapter 17 is a little bit easier for me to understand than chapter 16. But I still need to kind of go over and review what situations are best for which analysis technique. So I'll know which equations and which techniques to use for those. But some of the problems that I thought were interesting that I worked on this week were the problems that had to do with conservation of angular momentum when the net impulse, the net forces, external forces and moments were 0, so there was no impulse term, which is kind of similar to an ice skater when they move their arms in or out and their angular velocity changes. And so there was a cool problem in your lecture videos that had a satellite, and the panels on the satellite were rotating, which would change the I value for the satellite. And then there was also a problem in our homework where there was like a wooden table with a panel on it that was hinged, and then again the I value was changing from before and after. So that was kind of an interesting problem. And then some of the other problems, I've noticed that you have to draw a lot of impulse and momentum diagrams, and so I've been trying to review those, and I find that if I'm able to draw a really good representation of the problem using an impulse diagram and momentum diagram, that pulling the equations out of that is a lot easier. But so far, I think this chapter is going pretty well. I'm hoping to finish up the homework today or tomorrow, and then I can just begin to review for the upcoming test that covers chapter 16 and 17. I'm hoping to have enough time this week to do a lot of the problems out of the book, to review some of the sample problems in there that are provided, as well as reviewing some of the chapter 16 and 17 example problems in your videos and the homework problems. But that's all for this week's check-in. So far, I think everything's going well. So thanks for listening.